Over the past few years, interest in non-conventional fertilisers has increased. It's been driven by organic dairy farming, efforts to reduce farm nutrient runoff, and concern about the effects of soluble fertilisers on soil and stock health. These have combined to create a growing interest in biological approaches to soil fertility. Director of Pacific Biofert, Clive Sinclair, explains.
We started out in the very early days looking at the mountain of fish waste there was in New Zealand. In those days it was up to 100,000 tonnes, and we thought that if we could put $1 a kilo to that, well, that's $100 million. I was already liquefying fish and feeding it to pigs, and Orange Roughy came on the scene. We were contracted to use the waste, and we just no way had enough pigs to feed that much fish. And anyway, it was so full of oil, the Orange Roughy, it was terrible for them. So we had to find an alternative use. We started looking at the properties of the fish, and we found that the proteins, when the fish was manufactured correctly, could be protected and looked after and used in specialised liquid products to deliver cobalt, copper, selenium, the very minor elements to the pasture for animal health and plant health. A fluke happened one year. We'd made a sale of liquid, just a blended mineral mix, to Japan. It was 20,000 1-litre bottles. It was February, stinking hot weather. We were on concrete, and we'd spilt fish. And at the end, on the Friday, when we'd finished the container load, it was off. We all relaxed, left the mess, came back on Monday morning and went to clean the mess up. And lo and behold, there was a fungi over it, over the fish where it had been left. We came in with the high pressure hose, and the fungi and fish rolled up like a carpet. And where it had been sitting on the concrete, it was sparkling clean. The fungi had assisted, or with the assistance of the fish, had eaten the concrete. And my reaction was, why can't we do that with rock phosphate? Why can't we microbially digest the rock phosphate instead of using sulfuric acid like they do with super? We got a farmer to buy some. We were ready to put it on. We'd sprayed the fish in. We went to pick it up with the front end loader to load it onto the bulk spreader. And lo and behold, it was hot. It was cooking like a compost heap. Discovery, we patented it. This tank has the microbial food. It is fish. 1 kilo of fish waste is 1 litre of liquid. This is where we do the blending and the composting of the mineral substrates. In this bin here is the rock phosphate. The fish nutrient is pumped from the tank next door that we've just visited. The microbes, which are in a liquid form, are vortexed into that fish before they're sprayed into the rock phosphate. The loader is working with putting the rock phosphate in, loading in the other materials, and then picking up the blended product and then taking it down the alleyway behind me into the bin to go into a static composting process. It's like making cheese, wine making. It's just same systems, just harnessing natural systems to improve the availability of the rock phosphate, which is calcium phosphate, so that once it hits the ground, the microbes in the soil can take the microbes that are in the biophos and annihilate them, digest them, and then deliver them.
Shearmilker Stuart Morley farms on 80 hectares of slight peat topsoil on marine clay at Kerapihi in Waikato.
Every year it gets soil tested and we herbage test twice a year, sometimes 3 depending on what we're looking for, and we just measure and apply to the measurement. For the last 12 years I think we've had Biophos and Biolime and trace minerals from Pacific Biofert. In the first few years of Clive's product, we knew that I could see a response, but I wanted to measure it. So I measured it. Did a season of fenced off area, applied the fertiliser to plots, mowed them, dried them, and measured the trace minerals, the dry matter outcome, even studied the insect part of it, the clover content, did the whole lot really, and we come up with some fabulous results from it. As you can see, the grass stands up very straight. So the grass only photosynthesises when it's standing up straight, so it's taking sugar. But predominantly you'll find there's not much clover in here at this time of the year. There's a lot of worm activity, keeps the ground clean, keeps things rotating, cycling, which is what farming is, because you need to break that down to release your minerals for the next crop of grass. When you open it up, you try and see how it opens up, and you can see the roots are right down there, and that's probably maybe 8 inches deep, and you're looking for root systems going right down. But since it's been so wet, you wouldn't really expect to find many worms down here because they'd be all drowned ones. And you can see how the whole thing's knotted, and the root system, a lot of fine stuff, and there'll be a lot finer stuff that you can't see visually, being the fungi part of it. But see, the ground, just even though it's saturated, still wants to go into little balls and lumps. You can walk through any of these paddocks now, apart from the ones that are just grazed, and you will not find a cow shit. They're just broken down and reincorporated. Yep. Don't need dung beetles around here, just active worms.
John Vandergoes has a 60-hectare property between Morrinsville and Matamata and a 30-hectare support block. Until 7 years ago, he was applying fertiliser in the conventional manner.
The best thing about it is I think is the fertiliser we're using is not a reinvention. It's just making superphosphate, but in a different manner, really. So yeah, I mean, this has been grazed twice, and you only see pats from the last grazing. There's nothing. It was one of the things that Clive said to me when we started, was that there's a lot of pea trapped in our soil that we should be using, that we've paid for and sitting there in the bank, and it's about time we made some withdrawals. I think that's the nice side of it. It wasn't part of the decision to go, really. It's just a side benefit. We're soil testing every second year. The soil test results then go to Clive at BioFert, and they come back with a recommendation, and I just put on exactly what they recommend. We're probably down 50% on what we've been spending previously on the traditional fertiliser, only because we're putting on nowhere near the P. There's no K going on anymore. The only things that are different is probably a bit more sulphur and ag salt. I used to just follow the cows with 100 kilos of urea a hectare just about after every time they came out of a paddock. We're now down to doing, last year we did 3 circuits of the farm with about 50 kgs of sustained green it was now we use a hectare. So roughly about 50 units, 50 to 75 units of N a year, and that's all we use.
This program was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.